I boarded a plane to India in the spring of 2014, and I did a 10-day silent retreat. We meditated on our death, and meditating with our own mortality was like what cracked me open, really facing the last moments of our life, using our imagination, made this whole room of 80 people feel physically ill. I had a massive, massive awakening. That's when everything changed. And then I finished the retreat, got to meet the Dalai Lama.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where influential conscious leaders come to share the real stories behind their spiritual journey and how they're helping others awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter. Today, I'm excited to introduce you to Sah D'Simone. He's the founder of Somatic Dance Institute, where he unites dance, social justice, and spirituality to train instructors in the Somatic Activated Healing method. He's the best-selling author of Sassy Spirituality, and you may have seen him on Gaia, Big Celebrity Detox, and The Doctors. I'm also excited to share with you that Sah is a featured speaker at Awakened Lifestyle Expo on Sunday, December 7th, 2025, right here in Costa Mesa, California. You can get tickets at awakenedlifestyleexpo.com. Now, if you are drawn to deeper spiritual conversations that go beyond the surface, you're in the right place. And I want to invite you to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and of course, YouTube. Click subscribe, leave a rating or a review. That's an easy way for you to help us spread the word about these inspiring conversations that we release each and every week. All right, I know you're going to love Sah, so let's dive into my conversation with Sah D'Simone. Sah, it's great to have you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining us.
It is a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I want to hear about this fascinating story of awakening that I have read about a bit, but I want to start back with your childhood, where you grew up, and if you grew up with some sort of faith or spirituality that was a part of your upbringing.
Yeah, thank you for that question. I grew up in Brazil, in the south of Brazil, in Londrina, Paraná, small little town. I grew up Catholic, and so I went to Catholic school, all throughout. I was up until 16, and grew up going to church, grew up doing all the Catholic rituals, and I although we were Catholic, it wasn't very much talked about faith and tradition per se. Like there was no real structure. We were kind of chucked along and did the things, but it wasn't like a real pray to God, do these things. It was kind of just it was societal, because in Brazil it's a huge Catholic country, so we just kind of society. We just kind of did the thing, went through the motions. Yeah. However, I myself have had in the last couple of days, I've been reflecting. I was because now I'm reconnecting to my ancestors in such a big way. I'm reconnecting to the unseen forces in life in such a big way. Living in outside of Los Angeles now, that I was reflecting on when I was, 12, 13, 14, 15, I used to have the really close contact with the unseen forces, with spirits, with even the dead. And now that my mom is dead, I'm trying to find my own connection to her afterlife, So yeah, there's so many parts of growing up that I'm remembering now from this place of awareness that it's beautiful. Thank you for this question.
Yeah. So obviously you moved here. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. People who don't know your story, you moved to the United States when you were 16 years of age. It's a big, huge shift. I actually moved when I was 16 from the state of Kentucky to Northern California. So although it wasn't a different language, it felt like I was in a different world, a different language. What was that like for you to move to the States when you were 16, and how did life unfold for you?
Yeah. In short, it was pretty traumatic,
Mhm.
to move to a foreign country with completely foreign language and values and culture. It was like very, very interesting to moving from our economic background there to a total different one here, working these really difficult jobs as a young man, and yeah, not knowing where I fit in, not knowing like where do I sit in the bus? Do I sit with the brown kids? Do I sit with the black kids? Do I sit with the white kids? Like, where do I belong? Because
Mhm.
I didn't speak Spanish. I spoke Portuguese, so I wasn't necessarily, speaking the language with the brown kids. And I try to dress like the black kids because to me that they had the coolest style. So it was this like interesting, and I was like afraid of the white kids because it was just so different
Mhm.
from how I grew up. So yeah, it was very difficult, very, very difficult. And you can imagine me, someone who's got so much to say about so many things all the time. I was silent, honey. I was silent throughout high school. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
so challenging. After high
yeah.
school, what was that next step for you?
Yeah, and I do want to say though, high school was the Florida. I mean, um, being in Brazil and growing up in a Catholic country. This I sort of like breezed through this, and I want to emphasize this a little bit more. Grew up in a Catholic country, in a sort of machista community culture. I had to hide my queerness from a very young age. So hiding is such a fun, foundational part of who I am led to this angst and to this anger and to this existential inquiry. That then led me to drugs and alcohol from a very young age. And then it sort of continued and deepened, and it got worse when I moved to Florida and went to high school and all of that, and then moved to Los Angeles at 19. I was like, oh my God, I finally get to get out of Florida. And then when I got to Los Angeles, like, oh, this is amazing. Oh my gosh. There's diversity, there's culture, there's inclusivity. I feel seen, I feel like I belong. And yeah, we moved to a studio apartment. There's four of us living in a studio apartment at 19. So it was a big, wild journey. And the journey continued, right, into trying to find God at nighttime, looking for the goddess in a drink, looking for, the dark mother in a bump of cocaine. I'm really trying to find um, the divine and look for these existential questions uh, in the club, drunk and high. And I would get glimmers of it, right? But nothing that would sustain the search. Um, and then from Los Angeles, I moved to New York, started working in a fashion magazine, and that took off, and it was like an amazing, beautiful experience to be so young and have so much creative opportunity to work with celebrities and a lot of amazing people in the space. And then at 28, turning 28, 27, turning 28, um, that's when I was bought out of the magazine, and that's when I went to India. And about 11 years ago is when everything changed.
Mhm.
Everything changed.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about your process of coming out, because as I interview people who go through that process, it seems like there is oftentimes a connection between a allowing oneself to be seen and also somehow a connection to embracing one's divinity. Did you
Mm,
um at what point did you become aware of your own sense of sexuality, and what was that process like of coming out?
mm. I don't know if coming out for me was a connection to my divinity. I came out when I was out, like sexually exploring, experiencing from a young age. Um, but I came out at 23 when I had the big title of the popular fashion magazine in New York. That's when I felt like I could do. I'm at the top of my game. No one could. There's nothing anybody could say about
Mhm.
who I am, if they like me or not, because look at what I have to show for. So I was really invested in the American dream, as in money, power, fame. That's what really I equated my worth to, and
Mhm.
sort of my divinity at that point, or my worth, I should say, was very much tied to what I had to show for. And um, because of the way I was, raised, I think when you mix in there queer trauma, religious trauma, immigrant trauma, and a lineage of mental illness and a lineage of refugees, you really have a recipe for a fabulous disaster where it could propel you to do really massive, big things in life, and also to burn you out, and it just continues the cycle of generational trauma that keeps on bleeding to every area of your life. So I for sure fell into that wagon of workaholism, of drug addiction, of all the things that could get me to accomplish these goals that, in truth, do not lead to happiness. And it's a weird thing to tell people that like money, power, fame does not lead to happiness. When we've heard this a million times, and people may look at my life and be like, "Oh, easy for you to say with what you have." And I wish that people could genuinely look at people that they're inspired by and truly listen to them with humility and grace, to really be like, oh, I believe you. And now I've moved into a ranch where, like, this morning I was feeding the pig. We have a pig, we have a goat, we have chickens, we have ducks. In a week from now, we're gonna have horses. The pig, I was feeding a tomato, it bit my finger. So I have just like my whole reality is changing so much. And yeah, so it's I think a huge part of us finding our divinity is to really heal these generational patterns, the generational traumas that are so pervasive. They're so sticky, and they really make up so much of how we think and feel and interact with the world.
Mhm. After you left Bullet Media, you went on this journey, this adventure. What propelled you on that first trip? Like, what was the motivation? Were other people going? Did you have an event you wanted to go to? What was it that propelled
Mm.
you?
Thank you for that. Such a good question. Um, Honestly, it was so basic. It was literally me. This is 2013. I left the fashion industry November of 2012, and then I went to Europe, had a whole binger there of getting high, going to Berghain in Berlin and seeing my best friend in Switzerland, the whole thing. And then 2013, I spent um, blogging and starting up a new company. But meanwhile, the things that I was blogging about was very much about like, how do I become happy? What is happiness? What is peace? What is wellness? What is spirituality? What does it mean to be human? Like really genuine inquiry about what it means to be human outside of stuff, outside of the materialistic view. I wanted to explore the subtleties of being human, the more invisible parts of humanity, right? Um, and one thing led to another. It was like meditation, and then it was like Hinduism or Vedic philosophy, and then it was Buddhism, and it was all leading east. All the answers for all my big existential questions was all in the east, all in India, Nepal, Indonesia, Thailand, was all in that region. But the real sort of anchor was India. But I had planned to go to the south of India. I wanted to study with these South Indian gurus. And my dad comes into the room, to the kitchen one day and says, "You should go to the north. You should study with the Dalai Lama up in the Himalayas." And I was like, "What do you even know about this?" I look up his holiness Dalai Lama. And I think there's a lot of misinterpretation, misconception of who he is and in the space. And I just want to say I don't stand by any of that. I believe that he's a saint. Um, so I look him up online, and I I am immediately like, I know you. And that was the first time in my life that I've had sort of this deja vu, synchronicity, like really blunt, eye opening experience. And I said, I know you. Wow. And it was like, I need to go, I need to go find you. So then I boarded a plane to India in the spring of 2014, and I did a 10-day silent retreat. And then after that 10-day silent retreat, we meditated on our death, and meditating with our own mortality was like what cracked me open, really facing the last moments of our life, using our imagination, made this whole room of 80 people feel physically ill, the psychosomatic experience of visualization. Um, but everybody had a massive, I like to say everybody, I mean, I had a massive, massive awakening. That's when everything changed. And then I finished the retreat, got to meet the Dalai Lama. It was a big group of people. There was 200 people. And being in that, in his temple, this is where this is all the driving force of my life really happened. It was in that morning. I'm sitting there, and I'm looking around, kind of perplexed, confused, that like I feel so calm in my body. My mind feels so relaxed. I was like, what is happening? What happened? And he was saying beautiful, wise things, poetic things, but it wasn't about the words. It was about the energetic environment that he created by existing from a place of peace, by
Mm-hmm.
existing from a place of not a fixed identity. He wasn't trying to uphold a view of being a saint. He wasn't trying to uphold a view of being a good person. He was so relaxed in his identity. He was so free that the whole room was able to relax, and our identities and our views and our grasping and our to-do list, it all relaxed because we were all in this space of freedom where the to-do list isn't important anymore. Our pain stories about the past don't hold a grasp in the present moment. The future there's no footing for it because there's only this, you know beautiful uh, nowness of experience. So I was like, oh my God. And it took me a while to name. It took me like leaving there, having breakfast with a group of people and saying, is there something in the water? What's going on? Did we get roofied with the saint? And no, it was the presence of a liberated being. And that was what changed the course of my life. I said, I want that power. I want to be able to walk into a room and relax people. I want to be able to walk into a place and just have everybody forget their identity and their labels and their how personalized we make everything, how we take everything for so personal, and how we feel like life is constantly against us. I want to be able to walk into a room and non-verbally communicate that. So that was what really set the course of my life. And then later that year of 2014, that's when I did a 30-day meditation retreat in Nepal, and I met my guru. Yeah, and then it was like, whoa, I started to feel so alive without needing intoxicants, that I was like, oh, I, it was like this natural spring of helping other people became like this second nature for me. It wasn't something that I had to like fetch and think about. It just like kind of overcome. It was like overcoming me. Caring for other people is caring for myself. Caring for myself is caring for other people. It's this beautiful, sustainable cycle. So that's kind of like the very short. It was long for a podcast
Of
format, but
course.
short little nugget of a story of how it all unfolded.
Of course, thank you. There's so many twists and turns along the way, so many conversations, so many breakthroughs that it's impossible to encapsulate in a short conversation. The thing that
Yeah.
I'm struck by when you talk about his presence is that you talked about him having this energetic presence in the room that transformed, and you wanting to have that presence when you walked into a space. As so many people, perhaps I haven't necessarily been a part of that culture where fame is such a so alluring and yet such an illusion, because really you're talking about fame as well, that when someone walks into a room, that the room changes in some way. And so how would you differentiate between that type of transformation of a physical or energetic environment
Mm,
versus the type of physical or energetic environment that you sense the Dalai Lama was creating?
mm. Wow, very good question. Very good question. Very, very thought-provoking. And it's a very simple line in the sand. When I was at my prime in the magazine world, I would walk into places and I wanted to make sure that people could feel that I was superior to them because I was wearing the expensive outfit. I had access to clothes and things that most people could never afford or couldn't even afford myself, but I had access to it because we're shooting for the magazine. So I had access to these incredible clothes that I just got in from Paris. It was like very wild thing. So I wanted to create a field of superiority. I want people to look at me with envy and jealousy. And I wanted people to feel like they didn't really matter. It's so hard to say these words out loud. But I'm bringing up something to the collective because I think a lot of people operate from this place unconsciously. I bring all the unconscious to the surface. This is one of my gifts, is to be so insatiably and humbly vulnerable with how hard it is to be in a human body and how hard it's been for me to be in a human body. So that's the difference. It was a superiority, a really separate, dualistic, separatory, like, how can I be in a pedestal and you be below me? Now, the Dalai Lama, being a holy being that has hundreds of millions of followers around the world, who's changed the lives of millions and millions of people around the world, made the whole room feel like we're all sitting on stage with him, that we're all saints. Nothing that he said and no gesturing and no energetic change made us feel like we weren't saints ourselves. So that's a huge difference that I think we, on the psychosomatic, spiritual, social path, can aspire to enter a room and make everybody feel like they are worthy and good and whole and lovable. I think that is a huge gift. And imagine when we can do that with our presence, not with the words, not with the actions, but just with our presence. Can our presence be enough? And I learned a lot about this presence. This was, 11 years ago when I had that encounter with the Dalai Lama. I got to see him multiple times throughout these last 11 years. But I really learned the power of presence in a whole other deeper, deeper way when I was doing my medical training as a medical chaplain at Cedars-Sinai, sitting with the sick and dying, and really my rabbi at the hospital, Rabbi Sarah Baruch, who is like one of the most brilliant spiritual leaders I've ever met, she says, I had this impulse of wanting to always bring something to the patients, right? She's like, you can't bring them anything. You have to be the cookie. Be the cookie. And I quoted her in my third book about friendship, these exact words: be
Say that
the
again.
cookie.
Be the what?
Be the cookie. Because I wanted to bring a cookie. I wanted to bring a rosary. I wanted to bring a mala bead. I wanted to bring a book. I wanted to bring a coffee. I wanted to bring something. I
Yeah.
needed to bring something to people. It was like this insatiable desire to please people by pleasing their senses, and Rabbi Sarah Baruch was like, no, be the cookie. Let your presence be the gift. And I really understood that in such a massive way, especially because the patient population that I worked with, some of them were nonverbal, some of them were in disorganized states of mind, confused. Some of them were in towards the end of life. So it was a very huge, huge ask. Can I transmit peace? Can I transmit love without a single word? Can I just be in a room? Sometimes there's a patient that I had that was in a hospital for maybe 3 or 4 months, and it's unusual, right, that you have someone stay in the hospital for that amount of months. And I try to find out if the patient had any kins, like a partner or a child, and try to call them, and they weren't really available or responsive to wanting to, like, hey, how are you guys caring for this patient who is nonverbal, really disorganized thinking, strapped to a bed because of being agitated. So I would go into the room and I'll sit at the end of the bed and I'll just pray quietly. And some days I would walk out of the room feeling like I did something. Something happened. And some days I would walk out of the room and be like, "Oh my God, I'm so full of shit. I think I'm doing something holy, but I'm not." So it's this dance of like doing something and not doing anything. But later, in moments that are completely unrelated, taking a shower and being and having the revelation, or sitting for tea ceremony, or gardening, whatever, and dropping into that realization. Oh wow, like those moments mattered. All of those
Mhm.
moments mattered, you know.
Mhm. What do you think allows someone to walk in a room and with their mere presence create that change in the energy to allow people to feel like they're saints or to feel like that there's peace? What is it that someone must do in order to be able to
Hmm.
create that environment?
Beautiful question. I think there's a couple things. I never sort of structured sort of like five ways to be
Of course, of course.
to create an environment of peace around you, to be peace, or to emanate peace. I haven't structured in this way, but I'm gonna think through this as we're talking. I think first and foremost is constantly driving your attention back into your body, into your into the minutia of breath in, breath out, feet on the ground, uh, um, air brushing by your skin, sun kissing your skin, like I'm swallowing, like just very minutia, basic somatics of like, oh, I'm in my body. You notice a feeling coming, you're able to be with the feeling in the body. You know in the body where the feeling is when it's happening. I think that is a really important thing. And then when the feeling comes, you don't take it personal. You don't hold on to it. You don't become possessive over it. You're able to just allow feelings to come and go without making a whole story about it, without making it mean something that doesn't mean it, without being the barometer of truth about who you are or life, allowing feelings to come and go. And that is so hard because we're so trained to conceptualize, criticize, possess, or pathologize every sensation that visits the body. So I think really starting from that place, right, of like, can I rest in my body and allow all the coming and going of my feelings to just be that, a coming and going, that be okay. And then I think with that, there is a really beautiful unshackling of identity, a decolonizing of ways of living and relating. I think the more in Buddhism, it says that one of the main reasons why we suffer is because we are so we there's so much self cherish, there's so much self intoxication. There's such, we call a narcissist like those people, but through the Buddhist view, that is the reason why we all suffer, because we have this deep selfish tendency to make everything about us. So when we can enter our selflessness, and this across every major world tradition, through all the Judeo-Christian faith, through all the Eastern philosophies, they're all pointing to the same common denominator. Selflessness is how you reach God. Selflessness is how you become happy. Selfless, how you become peaceful. So I think, step one, allowing what visits to visit without holding on or pushing away. And I think step two is monitoring how often you are um, holding on to your identity, to your preferences, to your boundaries, to a sense of self that exists independently of everybody else and everything else. And I think that the combination of these two things, which are very, very hard to do, to monitor and practice, because we feel a feeling, we're like, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm angry. And then our mind orients towards the anger, and then it's red. Our vision is red. And then it's all about me, mine, and I. Right. So then the whole thing goes down the drain. But if we can allow things to come and go, if we can allow a buzzing sensation in our belly, that historically we have called it anger, to just be what it is, an unpleasant sensation in our bellies, not get caught up with the stories that we tell about our feelings. I think that is so massive, right? Because we tell a story about the feelings, what are we doing? We're emphasizing a sense of self. We're emphasizing an identity that's independent, separate from the rest of reality, which is so not true. It's the opposite of reality. There's not one thing that happens independently of everything else. Everything is a relationship. We are not a me, mine, and I. We are a we. We are a relational field. And the more we can relax into a malleable, uh, uh, relational fields that we are, the more we can enter a room and just relax people. So it really has to do with like monitoring the mind. Am I making this about me? Am I holding on to the past? Am I pursuing the future? Can I be here? And then it's a dance, right? Because as I'm saying all this, people will be like, oh, but what about accomplishing my goals, fulfilling my dreams? If I make everything about being in this place of relaxation and ease and not holding on and tight, do I still get to fulfill my dreams? Do I still matter? Do I am I still important, individual, authentic, unique? And there's such a huge emphasis on being unique in today's world and being authentic. I think we just missed the mark of how far we've gone in each direction.
Thank you for sharing. I want to pivot just a little bit to your book called Spiritually Sassy: 8 Radical Steps to Activate Your Innate Superpowers.
Mhm.
You've written this book a number of years ago, but very popular. And I'm curious how you define what does it mean to be spiritually sassy?
Mm. What does it mean to be spiritually sassy? Wow, these words would come out of my mouth so fast because it was such a you know it was such a huge part of my identity to be sassy and to be fire and to be sharp and to be quick. And I'm not in a sassy season of life anymore as I was before. So it's a change. It's a change in the curriculum. But I think to be spiritually sassy is to choose to be bold, to be you. I think in a sea of sameness, I was in my boyfriend was telling this to me the other day. We're having lunch uh, in Los Angeles a couple of days ago, and he was like, "Do you remember something you used to say all the time?" I said, "What?" Like, what are we doing? What's everybody doing? What's going on? Like, why does everybody look the same and everybody's doing the same thing? What's happening? I felt suffocated by the sameness of it all. And now being in a small town outside of LA, it's everyone's very unique. Everyone's very authentic. They're spiritually sassy. They're living out their lives in these meaningful, unique ways. So I think spiritually sassy is a choice to not follow trends, to not participate in copy and pasting everybody else's lives and desires and dreams as your own, to really like have a conversation with the dark mother, with the Mother Earth, with the spirits, with yourself, with your ancestors, to figure out like what is the thing that you're here to do. And I think that is a huge, really important thing to know. To be spiritually sassy is know who you are and know how you serve. And not from how everybody else is telling you to serve, not how everybody else is telling you to live, but to really like choose to get to know. I think so many people won't get the haircut, won't paint their nails that color, won't wear that clothes, won't do this thing, won't explore this topic, won't people don't follow their curiosities because they're so afraid of what other people are going to think. I think spiritually sassy is someone who doesn't care what other people think, but not in a way of being irreverent for the sake of being unkind and mean. No, it's just you're irreverent because you're insatiably curious about being alive in a human body and this fleeting experience of being human, and how
Hmm.
strange it is. So
Mhm.
I think that.
It's interesting when I look back on the books that I've written. If someone were to talk to me about a book that I wrote 10 years ago, it'd be like, Oh, that was a season of life, right? When I was processing that or wanting to express that. And so you mentioned that you aren't necessarily in a season of sassiness. Uh, Obviously, you can define that and help people embrace that if they're in that season of needing to embrace that. But what season of life would you say that you're in right now?
I'm in a season of life where I am connecting to nature and animals in a way that I've never before. And that I did this exercise in my membership the other day where I was training people, explaining to my students how to know a somatic yes or a no. And it was very simple. I said, first, let's just practice saying yes. And you just notice the impulse of how the body responds. Yes. Yes. So you perk up a little bit, like your tailbone may pop out, your chest comes up, your shoulders roll back, your gaze kind of lifts up, your hands may even come up to the air. Yes. 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 And then a no, no, no. Practice a no, no, no. And we just practiced that for, I wanted to get everybody to understand like what's a no and what's a yes. And then I read them a list of ways of being of service because the Dharma talk was about being of service in your own terms because so many of my students are massive people pleasers, which they it makes you an incredible healer, an incredible partner, incredible friend, an incredible mother, and also it burns you. You can burn out really fast. So we're trying to understand what seasons of life we're in. So what came up is serve with the seasons, right? What season of life are you in? Just like how nature has seasons and we're not separate from nature, we are nature. We have a location within nature. And then when I was reading, it was like um, um, making food for a homeless shelter, reading poetry at an orphan center, caring for the sick and dying at a hospital, um, whatever. There's like so many things, so many ways of caring and being of service, and then what one of them was tending to the land and caring for animals. And then I said yes. I said yes, and I was like, oh, that's new because my whole world has been so much in the field of my sort of my worldview and my direction. It's been so in the direction towards being a humanitarian, caring for so many different kinds of people. When and starting to question the season of my life that I'm in, if caring for the land and for the animals is as worthy of a choice instead of caring for the sick and dying in a hospital, instead of caring for the unhoused community. And it was a real battle with me.
Hmm.
So to rest in the season of life that I'm in, that I think it's not spiritually stressed, but it's spiritually farmer. I think that's the season of life that I'm in. Yeah.
I think about the word spiritually sustaining, that you are
Mm-hmm.
sustaining life, sustaining the land. Yeah, yeah. Spiritually sustaining. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious about dance because that's a huge part of what you are bringing to the table and something that I'm super excited that you'll be doing a workshop at Awaken Lifestyle Expo. But when did dance come into your life as a healing or spiritual
Mhm.
modality that began to help you?
Thank you for that. And I'm so excited for our workshop too. It's going to be so epic. 2015 is when, so 10 years ago, I had come out of a retreat and 2015, anywhere, sometime around like 2014, 2015. And I had finished a long retreat and was very in my body, very grounded here and now. And then I went to Bali and met ecstatic dance. And the choice, I wasn't sober yet back then, but the choice to come into the dance floor sober, it was like so unfamiliar, so uncomfortable to really like make that choice.
Hmm.
And it was Friday night. We danced at the yoga barn in Bali, and Sunday morning. And oh my goodness, it was the most wild, incredible, life affirming experience that I've had. It was like keeping um, my attention inside of my body and dancing with my eyes closed and allowing the dance to dance me and allowing sensations to come and go was like bringing the meditation into movement. And that is life, right? It's like, can you meditate through your life? That is what we want. Um, so that's how the dance came into my life. But then the somatic activated healing method wasn't born until 2020 and really formulated into like 2021. Um, and the first training didn't happen. The first somatic activated healing teacher training, where we've trained hundreds of people at this point in this modality, it didn't come around to 2022. But it was so I met the dance 10 years ago, right? In the ecstatic dance. And there was very little structure. And I would dance in Bali, I would dance ecstatic dance. In New York, I would dance five rhythms. In Los Angeles, I would dance five rhythms. And all these sort of like movement practices that were so healing and so profound for me. And I started to post videos of me dancing on Instagram. And I would write these really long captions because it was the dance would come after I had prayed, done my breathing practice, done my meditation, done my intuitive moves, and then I would do the dance. So I didn't know that there was structure already happening to the dance back then. So I would post these videos, and then one thing led to another. Um, Deepak Chopra's CEO at that point reached out to me and say, "Come for a meeting." And I was like, "Wait, this is weird. Like, my God, like, so wild, such a huge thing." So I was like, "Okay, come for a meeting." I come for a meeting in this beautiful office, and there was like maybe five of them and me, and there's so many questions, so many. It was just like I was being sort of interviewed to see if I could make the cut to be part of the sort of the upper echelon of spirituality. And um and it was unnerving experience. One thing led to another. They asked me to teach my dance medicine practice, my dance practice, my dance method on stage with Deepak Chopra, maybe like three or three. It was like, no, no, no. It was like a month after that meeting. So I had 1 month to come up with like a method. And I was like, oh my God, do I even have a method? Is this a method? What am I doing? And then when I realized that I was actually doing, I was helping people to keep their attention inside their body when you are in motion. And what happens when you keep your awareness inside and you're bringing your body into motion, when then the body takes over and the mind really takes the back seat, and then the whole process of somatics, from my understanding, my practice of mind and body connection, and then the body can complete the natural cycle of stress that wasn't complete because of all the reasons why. So that happened, and then the method really became. It was like a social experiment. Every Friday during the pandemic, I would teach on Deepak Chopra's Chopra Global account, and there was thousands of people joining every Friday. And I did that for a year and a half. So it was a big social experiment. It was like, wait, when we do this move, how do we respond? What happens when we practice in this way? What happens when we move with the breath? What happens when we close our eyes? There's a lot of social inquiry in how people are responding and how this work was working for people. And then it just one thing led to another. Then the teacher training became this really sought out practice, and I'm so utterly grateful for the dance and how it can serve people. And right now we're halfway through the training. Um, and what I've done through the years is how this differentiates from ecstatic dance and from other sort of dance modalities, is that we're not performing a dance that's pretty or for applause, and we're not seeking a high. we're really practicing a dance of freedom, which is a dance that leads us into a relaxation of our identity. It's a dance of no self. We're going to get to experience some of this when we come together in December for the event. And yeah, there's lots of steps to it, and this framework of dance um, happens and exists because of all the difficulty that we've experienced in our lives before. Unless we have the time and the presence and the tools, whenever we have the stress cycle or the trauma cycle never got to be completed, so it's now stored in your body, and then your mind gets very cluttered and you become very agitated and you become very tense. And I'm using diplomatic words to not say you become a unkind, narcissistic, cruel person with a massive anger problem, or you're lost in your addiction patterns, and like all the, because I've seen it all, I've done it all. So I don't have a problem naming how tense and agitated we become unless we've processed our emotional baggage. So in the dance floor, you're releasing the past from your body, and then you're relaxing so deeply into being nothing and no one that you're able to be everything all at once. And then you get these oracular, divine jolts of inspiration, of clarity, of like, oh my gosh, things that don't belong to you. Things are so much bigger than your short life. Yeah. So that, I hope that's helpful with the explaining this process.
Yeah, thank you. Talk to me about the teacher training for a moment, because those who are listening or watching might be interested in enrolling in your next training. It's called the Somatic Activated Healing Method. Just happens to, add up to Sah. Wow, this is miraculous. I love it. The Sah method. And how often do you do the training? What's involved in the training? Who is the training for? Like, who would it benefit? Can they integrate it into their existing, modalities that they've already been trained in? Like, talk to us about this for a moment.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share. So the training, what sets us apart is that we're bringing somatic dance, and what makes it somatic from our view, what makes our training robust and wild and specific, is that we're bringing Buddhist wisdom. So traditional Buddhist wisdom about the qualities of the heart, and what is this no self experience that the Buddha spoke about so in depth. And then we're bringing restorative justice and social justice and trance dance. So trance dance is one of the oldest healing modalities that humans have ever created. Or it was chicken or the egg, like did the trance dance, like who came first? Obviously, humans and then the dance, but did we create it? Doesn't matter. Point is, historically looking at it, trance dance has been uh, the most profound healing modality that's ever existed. However, with all the colonialization that's happened throughout human history, trance dance specifically, has become a practice, looked down upon, where historically it was a practice of connection to God, of divination, of a real practice, a real deep spiritual practice of really getting in touch with the divine. So the training encapsulates all these practices. We have an amazing faculty of clinicians, of healers, of shamans, of dance and movement experts, to restorative justice teachers, social justice activists. And so you're not just learning from me, it's an entire faculty of amazing people. It's 5 months long currently. The next one we may do 6 or 7 months. It is a very deep dive into all these topics. Anybody could do it. You just need to have the willingness to want to learn. Um, and really face your shadows, because the way that we do the training, people are like, it's about to be month 2, like when are we going to learn the moves, when are we going to learn the body keys, when are we going to learn how to guide the dance? It's like, oh wait, first month, first week of the training, the very first lecture is about the industrial prison complex. It's about getting people to understand that the most traumatized people in society are people who are in prison. And to be a healer, we have to have a different view on what it means to make mistakes. You have to have a higher view. You must have a higher view in order for you to call yourself a healer in our methodology, in our body of work. So that's where we start. So it's a deep excavation of all that's unmet in you, all the parts that you've exiled. And we do train a lot of therapists, a lot of life coaches, a lot of yoga teachers, a lot of movement people, because it's really complementary if you already have something going on in the field of mental health and field of spirituality. And also, we have a lot of moms and a lot of dads and a lot of people who just do it because they want to be a better father, a better mother, a better friend. So it really gives you a really, really robust practice. And we are certified by the International Dance Council, which is a body of an institution by UNESCO. So we're certified by that. And we're also, our training is all certified by the International Coaching Federation. So it gives you, between these two accreditations, you're able to teach this body of work around the world. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what's the best website for people to learn more about that?
You could go to Instagram, follow me on Instagram, and you could find access to all the links. Yeah.
Great. We'll put obviously the Instagram and your website, sahdsimone.com, available, of course, in the show notes. I want to hear a little bit about the workshop that you'll be presenting at Awaken Lifestyle Expo. For those of you who are watching, Sah's going to be with us to do a daytime workshop, and then he's going to be doing a keynote talk in our evening session on Sunday, December 7th. The workshop is a somatic dance journey. So if I show up, I'm like the worst dancer ever. I mean, like I am the ultimate white guy. Let's do the white man
Mm-hmm.
shuffle, right?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to experience?
Mm-hmm.
Take me through
You're
it,
going to be deeply uncomfortable first, and then you're going to relax.
man.
I think people who say I am, and I'm not saying this is your case at all, but I'm saying people who say I'm the worst dancer, um, that translates somatically to me with like somatic analysis. It translates as I'm really uncomfortable being in my body. It's hard for me to.
Analyze me. Go for it.
No, 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 no. It's not you. It's just it's an archetype. It's something that
Yeah,
I see
yeah,
because
yeah.
I've been doing this work for so long with so
Yeah.
many people around so many different demographics. I'm the worst dancer. It means it's uncomfortable for me in my body. It's
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
for me to be present and experience the ups and downs of being here. And it's not pointed towards you. It's
I
just
understand.
sort
I
of the
understand. Yeah.
thing that
Yeah.
we have seen. So you will hear me say, drop the white man shuffle, drop the masks, drop the identity, drop the preferences, and get uncomfortable. And it's really interesting how like the more fluid your movements are, everyone could do. I'm not doing anything that requires a Juilliard training.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything that requires a ballet, because I don't have classical training. I don't have traditional dance training at all. Uh, and what I've seen is that the more flexible your mind is, the more relaxed your mind is, the more your moves become more fluid, the more your moves become
Mhm.
more bolder, wilder, more gentle. And so it will be very clear when you're asked to explore your range of motion, how your range of emotions are also connected to it. A lot of people don't have range of emotion. Their emotions are one or two. It's happy or sad. It's numb or angry. So the sort of, one or two emotional range that they have. So through our physical range, we're going to explore our emotional range. We're going to navigate the like the depth of our humanity, and not shy away into like, let me play into what's safe. which is using you as an example, so forgive me here, but I'm not going to let you get away with the white man shuffle. I'm going to really call you into bring your neck in motion, bring your hips in motion. And then when we start to bring parts of the body that have been exiled, that have been atrophied, not physiologically atrophied, but psychologically and spiritually atrophied, what will happen is stuff will start to come up, memories and emotions that were perhaps implicit will start to become explicit, and things will start to come up out of the emotional body out of the unconscious, right, into the conscious and up and out, if you allow yourself to navigate through that process. So it's a very methodical method. There are specific moments of like 7 to 10 minutes where we are asked to explore a range and allow the dance to dance us, and dance without a center, dance without a self, move with our sensations, that kind of vernacular and guidance. And the rest of the practice is very much a training ground to get you to start to understand what it means to be in your body and operate from a place of presence,
It's
Yeah.
interesting. I've been doing breath work the last 3.5 years, and I found myself in the midst of breath work starting to utilize my arms. And most people, you just lay there, and it felt like my eyes are closed. I'm dropping into this hypnotic trance-like state, and I began to just move my arms and moving energy as I breathe. And I'm like, I feel so free just utilizing my hands as I'm doing this 3-part activating breath. And then I also found that in the midst of psychedelic experiences, my body was more free than ever, right? That self had dropped, and I was in this state of experiencing oneness. So amazing, amazing. Okay.
All of that. Yes. That is
Yeah.
literally what we could look forward to in the dance. Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll be sharing a keynote presentation at our evening experience. We'll be having Sah. We've got Ken Lloyd, a multidimensional healer, and then Livia Debbie, a channel from Romania. And you will be starting us. Tell us just a little bit about what we can anticipate with your talk.
I'm going to be speaking about generational trauma and how generational wounds get passed down as these, quote, gifts that we didn't ask for, and how these gifts that we didn't ask for are really guiding and running and potentially ruining our lives, and how unless we are deeply aware of what's unprocessed in our lineage, how that is really propelling us and guiding us to do things and act in ways that are unskillful in our reality now, to unfortunately fulfill the prophecy of perpetuating a cycle of pain. So there's very specific ways of understanding your trauma lineage, right? You could do some research, talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents, or you could also just sense in your body the weight of feelings that feel way too big, that do not match the context of reality. I grew up with an enormous sense of guilt, a guilt so heavy that never matched the context of my actions, never matched the context of my mistakes. When you start to explore the trauma, the lineage of trauma, the kind of trauma mapping I have in my ancestors, it's become very clear that it's something that's been traveled down and passed down to me, so I can help other people. So I can first help myself and then help other people to forgive, let go, make peace with. So yeah, and I think it's such a necessary thing in today's world that we give our ancestors the peace that they never had by us doing the work in our present lives.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right. So you can go to sahdsimone.com and learn all about Sah and the Somatic Dance Institute and the teacher training. We'll have all of those links in the show notes. Of course, you can go to awakenlifestyleexpo.com to get tickets to this event. Sah, if someone's watching or listening today and they are struggling with I guess I would say embracing their true self, because that is a huge theme that I'm just hearing through your own story, is like you embracing your sassiness, you embracing your humor, you embracing your sexuality,
Mhm.
you embracing your story and then creating a new story. If someone's having a difficult time embracing their true self and loving themselves, what encouragement would you give them today?
Oh, how many hours do we have to talk about this? Listen, I think in short, I want you to just, ah, it's like such a simple nudge I want to offer you guys right now is to work with the statement, there is nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with me. And just allow all the, stories and sensations and belief systems that come up with everything that's against that belief being truth, and just noticing how we have, given power to being something wrong with us, you know. So I think work with that, and then um, yeah, I mean, there's so much we could say to this, but I think really sitting with there's nothing wrong with you, and then I have so many free practice that I want to just gift to everybody. There's a 3-day somatic dance practice that I'll send you a link for, and you can put it on with the show too. That helps us to just embrace our fullness, our humanity.
Wonderful. Sah, thank you for being with us today. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for all the things that you're doing in the world to make this world a better place. And just appreciate it so much. Looking forward to having you with us at Awaken Lifestyle Expo. So thank you.
Me too. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.